So here we are, really kind of surveying the mound area. This is a really big site, and one of the things that we noticed right away, especially Brent at the beginning, was that this mound is not a circular mound, just a perfect circle. But as we look off towards the east, there's a couple things that are interesting here. One of them is it looks like there's a sort of ramp that heads off. This isn't unusual in the sense of worldwide, but the ramp also being directly east gives us some insights, or at least some possible insights, because at the end of the day, when you look at a mound, it's going to be usually three main purposes. One is going to be burial, the other one would be ceremonial, if something's happening on top, or maybe even a dwelling. We think, based on what we're seeing here, that it certainly probably wouldn't be a dwelling, because there's other high areas just adjacent here that would be much more beneficial to have as a dwelling versus to live up here. But if there's a couple things that I think are worth mentioning, is that if this was a ceremonial site, having a ramp coming off would make sense, especially as it's directed towards the east, the rising of the sun. But in the far distance as well, there's another little mound area. We're not quite sure. We're taking measurements of that. But the other thing I find interesting at this particular site, as it relates to the possibility of it being ceremonial, is all of the rocks that are around. There's a certain rocks every so many feet, it seems, around, not at the bottom layer, not at the top, but right around the middle part of the slope as you're coming up. And so what were those about? The GPR kind of showed us some interesting things as well. But the other thing that we want to show you is, so you're coming out here, you see all this, and if we just stayed on the mound, we'd be like, oh wow, look at this. But it's good practice to walk around the vicinity, because interestingly, there's a creek that comes really at least adjacent to this piece of property, this farm property, that goes north-south. But if you come over to the corner, to really the southeast corner, it hits another creek. So it kind of joins there, and you can see there's the hills on the far side. But what's fascinating here is there is a rock wall that is clearly not natural. You can see how it's been built. We're going to go over and show you. But it runs along the whole area of the creek. The even more amazing thing is that it borders this entire, both creeks, but it borders this property. The other thing that's pretty puzzling is that there's a rock wall on both sides of the creek. So there's actually two rock walls that are kind of, it seems like it's holding in the creek water or something. But it's tremendous amount of effort. So you think, okay, who's building this? Why would they spend this amount of effort to build this rock wall, which it's kind of worn down now, but it looks like it was 3 to 6 feet tall. So that's a tremendous thing. The other thing is when you leave here, the wall extends for miles. That something's going on. I don't imagine farmers in the last couple hundred years are going to be spending that kind of energy to build a wall on both sides of the creek. I mean, yeah, maybe this flooded out, but there's so many hills here that I wouldn't imagine there'd be that much standing water here, especially because we just had a major rain come through, inches. And I'm walking out here, and there's a channel, but it's not even full of water. And we just had a major, again, at least a couple inches of rain over the last probably 3 hours. But so what is that doing? To me, it adds to the puzzle pieces that we don't know the final picture of what it looks like, but we'll show you the rock wall in a minute. So what we wanted to show you here is, this is clearly not just maybe a big flood that happened and the rocks piled together along the entire edge. Because if you look, I don't know if you can see it on the far side, there's another berm which has the same, again, rock. You can see these are clearly human placed for miles and miles and miles. And as always in any sort of archaeology, the question we ask is why? Why would they do this? And secondly, there's usually three. Why did they do it? When did they do it? And who did it? Because we can see how they did it. It's pretty straightforward. This isn't Cyclopean architecture. This isn't megalithic stuff. But this is very well intentioned. But for so long, along the creek, again, both sides, were they trying to channel the water, which seems really odd. Nevertheless, what it does is it tells us that this implies something greater than just a farmer's field here in 1850, that somebody's out here building this whole thing just to bring in on both sides, all the way along, and even farther in the middle of the forest. So you think, oh, well, maybe they were trying to, keep in their cattle. That's not true, because when you look at the forested areas, this wall continues all the way down through really dense, where nobody's living. And again, it's not really meant an animal to get over this. What we do see is farther up, it's up to 6 feet tall or even bigger. So again, just amazing little things that we're trying to puzzle together. And here's an example of human interaction.